Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Monday, January 6th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again, absolutely free. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, and if you do that, it will let you download you'll see the glowing heart icon, and if you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Drag-On Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. You can also download from that website page when you're on whyagain.org and you click on Start Here. You can download a whole host of audio files of radio shows just like this one where people have called in and been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to those audio files even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. And we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials, and if you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so. The primary way to do that, especially if you're listening in the archives, is send us an email. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. Or if you have the interest, if you're listening live through the Needle online, you can download the Needle app. That's Nedl. And on the Needle app, it gives you the option to raise a hand to be in the queue to talk and or type in a comment. So please feel free to avail yourself of that if you're so inclined. We greatly appreciate whenever we get feedback from people because it just makes it infinitely easier for us to do what we have the intention of doing with this work, which is to be of service. And please let us know how you're enjoying what's happening, or you're not enjoying it, or you have something you'd like to refute about what we're saying or doing. And assist us in living into our intention to be of service. So I'm working with the urge to recite the call-in number that we've had for years, but we don't have that. We just have the Needle app, and you can raise your hand on the Needle app and let me know that you're in the queue or that you have a comment. I will give an update because any of you who've listened to this show for a while know that Michael and Jeanie have been very extra busy these past couple of weeks with Jeanie's son having a brain surgery and looking for healing. And he had the surgery and it went okay, but they had to go back in, and then they traveled back. I think it's about a 4.5-hour drive home, and then they had some complications. So now they're back away from home, and they're looking for any healing energy you might want to send their way, thoughts and prayers, and keeping their fingers crossed that they can find a good resolution for the complications that have come up with this brain surgery, and that Ryan, Jeanie's son, can start speeding his way back to full health. So again, we greatly appreciate comments or questions, whether you want to type a question in through the app and or raise a hand to become a caller live on the show. One of the things we had begun just before the holidays forced us to have some interruption in these live shows was that we started to take a look at A Course of Love. And that was based on a listener recommendation. We have read through with commentary The Way of Mastery twice in the last 3 years, and we've done the Course in Miracles lessons from the workbook in one of those years in the past 3 or 4 years. And we've also been through books like A Walk in the Physical and Diedrich Wolzak's book, Choose Again. So in lieu of someone raising a hand or having a comment or a call-in question, I will return to A Course of Love in the first chapter. And the text here reads, "Every living being has a heart. Let us define heart as the center of being, that place from which all feeling arises. All true feeling is love, capital L love, this energy of creation. And all love praises the creation itself. All love is recognition of the glory of the Creator and all that has been created. All love is the only only pure response of the created for the Creator. Everything is in relationship, in other words. And this is part of the part of so many things. Michael Ryce talks about this in his work. We have somebody who's clapped an appreciation and said we hope that we'll send prayers to Michael and Jeanie and Jeanie's son Ryan and their family, because they have returned to the place in Tennessee where he's getting the treatment. I believe it's Nashville. You are not separate from the beings in the world around you. We have a culture that praises and builds us up as individuals and assumes that there is separation where there isn't any, actually. And if you think in terms of being isolated and separate, you can create this illusion, this dream of separation, and yet everything exists in relationship to everything else. In this generation, one of our great philosophers talks about holons. Everything is a holon, meaning it is part of a bigger whole and it has subparts. And here in the Course of Love, it says that love, this energy of creation, is the only pure response of this connection, the relationship between the created and the creator. And your recognition of what love is will return you to your awareness of your connection to your creator and awareness of your relationship of yourself to the world around you. So the next paragraph reads that you learned in A Course in Miracles that all knowledge is generalizable, and so is all feeling. All feeling results either from this awareness of the energy of love or this lack of awareness of the energy of love. Now, I'm paraphrasing some of these words in the Course of Love, just as I did it when I was reading The Way of Mastery with commentary, so that where it uses the word God, I use the word creator. Where it uses reference to love as a verb, I flip it back to the idea that is also within these texts, that love is the energy of creation, that love is all there is. So when this text has a comment where it seems like it's asking you to love someone or something, or respond in love or with love as though you're doing something, I'm rephrasing it so that it's consistent with the recognition that this energy of creation that keeps extending, that gave rise to everything, and that creates the true relationship between you and everyone and everything else, is not a verb, it's a noun. And so all offerings of love are the only truth. You know, the Course in Miracles has an opening line. Where it says, you know, nothing unreal exists, nothing that's real can be damaged or hurt, and nothing unreal exists. There is only this dream of separation. There is only this illusion of isolation. And all suffering, in that context, is the result of believing the illusion of separation and losing sight of, or losing awareness, conscious awareness of, your true connection to all things. It says here, all offerings made from a place of fear or guilt are nothing. All offerings made from love are all that is. Love is the condition of your reality. In your human form, your heart must beat for the life of yourself to take place. This is the nature of your reality. Love is as essential to your being as the heart is essential to the body. You would not exist without capital L love, this energy of creation. And the way it expresses in form gives rise to this thing you call a physical body. The text reads, it is there, this loving energy is there, even if you are as unaware of it as you are unaware of the beating of your own heart. It says, a baby is no less alive because it does not realize its heart is beating. You are no less yourself, even though you do not realize that without this energy of love, you would not exist. The next thought in this is that the Creator's only thought is love. Read that with a capital L. It is a thought without limit. It is endlessly creating. Because of the extension of the Creator's thought of love, you exist. Without it, you wouldn't exist. I exist with you in this self-same thought. You do not understand this only because you do not understand the nature of your own thoughts. You've been trained to place the nature of your own thoughts inside your body, conceptualizing them in a form that makes no sense. And yet when you apply your thought to learning, you learn. So let us encourage you. This is an ability we can use together to learn anew. What will we learn anew? We will learn anew that we're all connected, that we're all made of the same stuff, that there is no separation. So, using your thought is using it as a way to dissolve the dream of separation and to learn your true nature as this essence of the creative energy expressing in form. That's the purpose of the Way of Mastery, the Course in Miracles, the Course of Love, A Walk in the Physical, all of these various books that contain these deep spiritual teachings. The text here goes on and says, you should be in a hurry only to hear the truth. And of course, all of the ways that you act when you want to hurry are backward to what you would achieve. So let your worries come and let your worries go. Don't give them a sense of reality and a solid nature. Don't relate to them as though they're valid. If they're anything less than this capital L love, peace, calm, serenity, compassion, then they're not your true nature. Remember always that these thoughts simply do not matter except in terms of time, and that you will save time by letting them go. Remember that your worries affect nothing. You think if your worries affect time that this is an effect, but time is also an illusion. It does not matter. Remind yourself of this as well. This is part of letting go of the old world to make way for the new. Realize these things do not matter and will not be carried with you to the new world. So you might as well let them go now. What are these things? These negative thoughts, these worries, these thoughts of self-loathing or insufficiency or low self-esteem. They do not matter. In essence, they will not be carried with you. They are not part of your true nature. The text goes on, it is as if you have carried your heavy luggage with you everywhere, just in case you might need something. And now you're beginning to trust that you will not need these things you have carried. Oh, no heavy coat, for you trust the sun will shine and that the warmth will surround you. You are an immigrant coming to a new world with all your possessions in hand, and yet as you glimpse what was once distant as a shore, it is now near, and you realize that none of what you formerly possessed and called your treasures are needed here. How silly you feel to have carted them from one place to the next. What a waste of time and energy to have been so slowed down by such a heavy burden. What a relief to realize that you need not carry it anymore. What is it we need not carry anymore? Our negative thoughts, our worry, our thoughts of self-loathing, our comparison thoughts. I love how Guy Finley says, the vast majority of your psychological pain and suffering is the bitter fruit of a comparative life. So when you catch yourself in a comparative thought, put it down like an old baggage that you've recognized you don't need. It's like arriving in Hawaii with all the gear that you needed to survive on the Arctic plain, and you don't need it anymore. What a relief to realize you don't need to carry that anymore. And now you might even have a wish that you would have believed that you were not needed even when they began. How happy you are now just to leave them all behind. The text goes on and says, "You do not realize as yet how heavy was your burden. Had you literally carried a heavy and useless trunk from one world to another, when you had been told by someone wiser that it would not be needed, you would, upon realizing the truth, ask yourself, what else had you been told that you disregarded? You might try one more thing and then another, and then you previously would have tried, but then when you're convinced that you were right and the other was wrong, you spin in these negative thoughts. If they're negative, they're false. Let them go. Each new step is tried and found to work, and your confidence in the wisdom of your teacher would grow and grow. You might consider that you could still learn from your mistakes and find the learning in the end to be the same one over and over again. And this you surely might do from time to time, but eventually you would realize that it would be quicker and easier to learn without all of the mistakes, and eventually you would realize also that the wisdom of your teacher has become your own. So you can take some of these timeless teachings, like if it's negative, it's false, and start applying it to your own thoughts and your own life experiences, and you don't need to wait for the next magnificent teacher to come and tell you, or the next moving piece of poetry to awaken you. You can start actively observing for yourself. If it's negative, it's false. And I don't need to keep carrying it, pouring my mind energy into it as though it were true, and trudging forward as though I have some wisdom about this negative thing that others don't understand. This is why in Dr. Michael Ryce's work, the Reality Management Worksheet, it says several different times on the worksheet, I cancel my need to be right. This is why I recite it over and over again in the forgiveness pattern. I cancel my need to be right. I cancel my need for anyone or anything to change, including myself. So I'm pausing here because I'm getting a message from Allende, and it's an image of the phone. And he's asking me to make sure to check for callers, which I'm doing, but there are no callers listed in the queue. And the only comments that I've received so far are the two from Allende. So hopefully, Allende, that gives you some feedback for what you're looking at. And as always, we're inviting people to call in, give comments, let us know that you're hearing us correctly. I think there's some of the technology we're trying to adjust to here in this new format. So please feel free to type a comment and or raise a hand in the queue. Susan Bingham, are you there and available? Well, I hear some rustling on the phone. Susan, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah. I love what you're talking about and reading. And I think what I want to say here is that it might hitch in. Before everybody went on vacation, you gave me or us a kind of meditation, breathing, relaxing, breathing in, breathing out, and just focusing on the breath and relaxing. And then if a thought comes, allow the thought to enter and leave without getting distracted and off track. So I often have a thought and then I realize I've been following that thought for quite a while and I haul myself back, but that's part of it and it's been very good. But then I didn't even want to admit this to myself because I used the tools, but I went into this kind of depression mainly after the election. And, I know in the Course in Miracles, they say you never know the reason for your upset. I attributed my upset to the results of the election, which I did not want, and also to the fact that my son has been going through a hard time with depression and anxiety, worse than usual. So I thought, I've done my wake-up sheets, and they ended up being the same way of detaching, stopping being so codependent, basically, on my whole life, on the election and otherwise, to step away, draw myself into the moment. But I wasn't getting very far. And then I had a kind of miraculous experience. In the Christian tradition, Roman Catholic and Anglo-Catholic, there are feast days, and the feast of the Holy Name is January 1st. And we had a Mass at my church at 7 p.m., which turned out to be very poorly attended. Tim and I were there, and one other woman, that was it. But the priest treated the feast day as if there were 1,000 people there. He had his full regalia on, and the candles were all lit, and did the Mass beautifully. And at the end of it, I thought, I'm going to ask for a laying on of hands in the old tradition. And so he didn't have to tend to very many people. So I said, would you be willing? And he took us, Tim and me, back to the Lady Chapel, an adjacent little chapel, put a stole on, get out the holy oil, and lay hands on my head, and Tim's too. And he kept his very big, warm hands on my head for probably about a half a minute. And when I came out of it, I was not troubled in that way anymore. But I'm cautious, so I wasn't leaping around saying, yay, it worked, I'm healed. I decided to just do my practices, lay low, and I had an idea, and this is what I'm coming to. I know it's an awfully roundabout thing, but I think the laying on of hands led to this. I do think human beings, whether like you and Michael over the radio show, can invite healing, set the stage for healing, or a priest who's had hands blessed and anointed in the apostolic lineage, which I'm not sure is all that important. But in any case, I had the thought that I was going to imagine that I had already died. And do you remember that play by Thornton Wilder, I think it is, called Our Town?
Yes.
Do you remember the part in it when people are sitting, after their deaths, they are sitting in chairs in the cemetery, speaking to one another from beyond the grave? And one person says, I'd give anything to go back and be on the planet for one day. So I decided I would imagine being beyond the grave like that, and that everything I experienced in my life was bonus, a gift. And it is in so many ways, because my dad died when he was 73 and I'm 80. My mom lived way beyond that. So I was thinking, this is, in a way, bonus time. But it released the attachment to everything, outcomes, and nothing has changed either. I still care about what happens after today and January 20th and all. I care, but I don't care. I feel as if something tremendous has been lifted and I can just live my life. And I'm still doing the meditations. I'm so glad for a moment with my son and to watch him do what he's doing to live his life and get himself better in his own way. But I thought that would be a good meditation if people were interested to pretend they're already beyond the grave and they're visiting. And when you visit, it's like going to a foreign country. You notice things that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. So I'm going around feeling this incredible peace and delight. And I just wanted to tell you about it.
Well, it's wonderful. I read a piece from Andrea Gibson right before or on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. And she also has a piece on for days when I don't want to be in the body anymore.
Wow.
And it's a wonderful thing. I've read it on the show before where she's talking about what if the soul misses everything about being physical in the body, even the aches and pains, even the stress and the worries. And so, I encourage people to check into that, to just kind of flesh out a little bit more what you're saying here. What if, in the play, you're sitting around in the afterlife wishing you could go back for one more day of, whatever it is, even if there was a migraine on that day. Just the idea of being able to feel and experience things at the physical level being a gift, even if they're not things that we say we like or we would choose for ourselves.
Is that poem readily available?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can find most of her stuff on YouTube.
Okay.
And if we were in a slightly different format, or if I were a little bit more used to this new format, I'd be able to pull it up on my phone. But I'm not leaving
Don't try it.
The Needle Studio to go find it.
Right.
But I've read it on the show before, and I've sent it to people before. She's got a book, You Better Be Lightning, is a book of her, one of her books. And, that poem specifically is, for days when I don't want to be here anymore or don't want to be in the body.
Well, that's the idea.
I will mention it again, but when I find the actual title of it. For the days I stop wanting a body is the title of that one.
It reminds me of, I don't remember her name, one of the listeners on the radio show who said things like, I get to hate somebody. Do you remember that one?
Yep.
What was her name? I'm trying to find it because I saved it. I just loved that thing that she wrote.
That was she's a frequent attendee of our support groups from time to time.
Yeah.
And I can see her face and her name will come to me, and that piece of writing is also something that I've read on the show before.
Right, and that is such a wonderful thing. In a way, just having her say what she said was both a permission and a cure for the shame or whatever
Erica
it was.
Her name is Erica Vega.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And she did a piece of writing about joy. And, this is, she's a very deep feeling person, a very passionate person. She writes very well, and she lost a baby at a stillborn, and writes about it and writes beautifully and powerfully, and we've shared it on the show before, and I can
Right.
but I know what you're talking about is that she's not shying away from any of her emotions.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's
she's saying, I'm I'm willing to feel this hatred.
Yeah. Which reminds me of Carl Jung and how he said the only way we're going to get to, I don't know the word he used, it isn't salvation, I don't think. He just said the full shadow self has to be in our honest awareness. We can't just get there with half of ourselves and let the other half, the shadow half, not be acknowledged.
Yeah, unless you make the unconscious conscious. When it's unconscious and it gets activated, the unconscious will control your life, and you'll call it fate.
Mm-hmm.
And the deeper part of most every deep, good spiritual tradition acknowledges that you can't have one half of the equation without the other.
Oh boy. Well, I've been having these very interesting talks with my grandson, who has become a fundamentalist evangelical Christian. And he's very anxious about me because he doesn't think I'm going to heaven unless I claim that Jesus is the only way. And he read me that John 14:6 or whatever it is passage, and even in the Aramaic Lamsa Bible it says it. No one comes to the Father except by me. And I say, Charles, who is me? And he says, it's Jesus who walked the earth. It's the guy. It's him. And I say, are you sure about that? And he said, yes, it says so. So I don't argue with him because he is so deeply influenced by this new religion and so excited about it. But he's also worried that his grandma is going to go to hell unless she stops believing that other religions could lead you to God, or no religions, but just a good heart. I mean, who knows what would lead there.
So,
yeah.
So, we've been through this in Way of Mastery, and there are parts of what we read in Course in Miracles that talks about if someone teaches you something based in fear, just walk away, because there is only fear or love, as the Course in Miracles teaches, and basically the only thing that is fear is this turning away from love, this absence of awareness of love, or contraction away from love. And so, we were at my father's wake the day of his funeral, and my sister had some friends from her fundamentalist Christian church, and they came, and they were lovely people. They traveled probably an hour to get there, and they brought food for our family in the private room at the funeral home. And as this woman was helping my sister uncover the food that they purchased and brought for our family, I heard this woman say to my sister, "Oh, Beth, I'm so sorry for you that because your father wasn't baptized in our church, you won't see him after death."
Oh, holy mackerel. Oh, wow.
And so it was a very loving, person who means well, and yet when the teachings are about separation, and when the teachings are fear-based, then they create more fear, and they create more of that sense of separation.
Right.
So, just every one of us has to decide for ourselves. Is there a value in a religious teaching? Is there a value in this school of thought or not? And each of us has to choose. The ones that we're presenting mostly on this internet show, and have for the past 14 years, is that if it's fearful, it's off the mark. That the connection of all to its source, everyone to their source, and everything to its source is what's true, and that you are a miracle of life expressing in form, and you are a miracle of the creative energy expressing, And your true nature can't be chipped, dented, rusted, faded, or broken in any way. So relax, soften, and as the Course in Miracles, our Course of Love teaching that we were just reading says, if it's negative, it's old baggage that's not useful anymore.
Right.
So you have the ability, because you have this freedom of choice, to just put it down and start using the teachings that resonate most with you, that leave you in the most loving, compassionate, calm, centered space. Use them yourself. Don't wait for some external teacher or force to nudge you in that direction.
Right.
Allende has chipped in on the comments and actually posted a link to Andrea Gibson's spoken word piece, For the Days I Stop Wanting a Body. So it's also available on YouTube, and you can search for that. And as I mentioned, I also follow her on Substack, and that's where I got the writing that I shared on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. I forget which day that was.
I'm noticing in the comments that Allende has created a different way of putting the comments. Each speaker is named, and then the words that person says are under that name, and then, Tim, when you speak, it pops over to you.
I believe what you're doing is not looking at the comments, but you're looking at the transcript, which is live and searchable.
Yeah, I am.
Which is
That's
one of
right.
the things that Needle allows people to do, is to listen and or search for things they can listen to based on actual spoken word content.
You're right. I am looking at that.
And so if you go to the Needle app, or you're using Needle online, and you can type in a phrase, or you can type in an artist, and if anywhere in the hundreds and thousands of shows that Needle is monitoring, if someone is using that phrase or talking about that topic, or if it is that artist, it'll pull it up on the Needle app for you to listen to.
Wow.
And the same thing is happening here on these shows, so that the transcript of the show is going to be searchable for people through their, AI bots, etc., so they can find us or people talking about things like we're talking about.
Wow, that's so amazing. Allende, you're a genius.
And
impressed.
it's a powerful app, and we encourage people to listen through Needle and or download the app so they can do what you're doing, Susan, is call in or type their own comments. And as we say often, it is all of our, or the vast majority of our highlight shows are the result of people calling in and asking questions, or making comments, or even having refutations.
Yeah.
So please feel free, if you're in the queue or if you're listening online, download the Needle app and raise a hand and chime in. Well, I was going to make a correction to something you said earlier, Susan. You said that this thing that happened made this change for you.
Yeah.
And the change that or the correction I would make, is that when this happened, you allowed yourself to drop some of that negativity. But there have been laying on of hands that have happened hundreds of thousands of times, millions of times over the years, that hasn't resulted in any kind of a healing.
I understand. No,
right?
that's
It's
true.
your willingness, it's your desire to have something be different in you that's allowing you to create it differently for yourself. It's your choice of thoughts and the way you apply your mind energy to those thoughts that make the difference in your life. It's like what I tell people routinely in my therapy sessions. They'll make a change and their life will start going better, and they'll come in and say, "Oh, Dr. Hayes, you saved my life, or you saved this or that." And I tell them, listen, if you had any clue how many hundreds and hundreds of people I've said and done the same things in front of them, with them, you might say to them, and yet they don't get a change, or they walk away and they think I'm a bad therapist, or they say, "What do you mean my thoughts are powerful and that I'm creating my own reality?" And they leave upset, and they don't make a powerful, positive change in their life. If you could know that, then you'd know how much truth there is in the observation that you're the one creating your life experience. And that's what we got to from the beginning all the way to the end of the 35 lessons in the Way of Mastery. From the very first lesson, it puts out the observation, the number one axiom, that you only experience the effects of the choices you make. And that is because as life comes in this flow of energy that you're experiencing, it's how you choose to interpret and respond to those events, those energies, that creates your experience of life, nothing else.
I feel as if I'm sitting on two sides of the fence at once. What you say is right. I remember the woman who was bleeding for so long and touched Jesus' garment, and he said, "Your faith has made you well." I also know, though, that he, in the crowd of people, he said, "Who touched me?" as if no one touched him but one person. But he felt something, some way, some kind of transfer of energy or something from this woman that was different from all the people who'd probably been bumping into him along the road there.
Right. It's a willingness. It doesn't have to be anything more mysterious than the willingness. Right? If there's a whole bunch of people around and they're all thinking that, he's the one and he has to come save me and he has to fix me, and there's one person that knows all I have to do is truly get close enough to his field and I can do this, he feels that difference. Those of us who are in the energy of blame and guilt and shame, we radiate a different energy from us than those of us that are in compassion and allowance and acceptance and surrender. I mean, you know it. You can tell when you're in the room with somebody and they're just bubbling over with anger, even if they're not screaming and shouting.
Yeah.
Or if they're deep in a depression, you can feel energetically the difference of energy radiating off of somebody who's stuck in the belief that they're separate and in the negative thought patterns versus somebody who's sitting there consciously aware of their connection to their creator or the creation itself. Right? The energy, like I was just reading about in the Course of Love, it says, the infant doesn't have to know about the beating of its heart in order to stay alive. It's still there, and it's the beating of the infant's heart that's keeping the body going. Well, you don't have to know, consciously be aware of your connection to your source as this energy of love, this energy of creation, and yet without it, you wouldn't be here. So even though you can be focused on anger and fear and anxiety and pain, it's the true essence of the creative energy that's giving you your existence and feeding and fueling you, and that you could be using in the very next moment to create an entirely different experience for yourself. One that's more loving, one that's more joyful, one that's more compassionate. And that's what all of these teachings that we're presenting are calling us to. It's the removal of the belief in separation. It's the removal of the energies, as Michael Ryce would say, that don't belong in the human system. Or it is, the way I talk about it, the awareness that those energies, they belong in the human system as an alarm.
Yeah.
And what do alarms tell us about? You know, one time when I was at Heartland for the teacher training, we were asked to come up with, we were assigned different chapters of the book to teach to the rest of the group. And in mine, whatever the essence was, I came up with the chocolate milk analogy or metaphor, and the one about the alarm system. And I said, listen, is there anybody in the room that's got a smoke alarm or carbon monoxide alarm in their house? And several people raised their hand. I said, okay, now, for those of you that have those alarms in your house, if it goes off at 3 in the morning and it wakes you from a solid sleep, is there anybody who would grab the phone and call 911 and send the fire department to a house 3 blocks down across the street from your house? And people chuckled and said, well, no, I wouldn't do that. And then I jokingly said, well, so why? Don't you care about those? Are you cold and heartless? What if there's a fire down there? What if there's a problem at that other house? And they laugh. And I said, where would you tell the fire department to go if there was an alarm going off in your house? And they said, in my house, to my house. And I said, oh, so what if your negative emotional state is best used by you as a wake-up call to the fact that there's something off the mark inside you? And it's not, he made me angry, she hurt my feelings, they are offending me. It's me creating anger, hurt feelings, or offense inside of me. And in that way, the energies, these negative emotional states, are designed as part of our system. They're an essential part of our system to wake us up when we're off the mark. Hoping that makes sense.
It does make sense. Of course, then my mind busts out in all kinds of questions.
Well, share some of them with us.
Well, these discussions I'm having with my grandson, he says, every word of the Bible is true. And I say, okay. What about the fact that King David committed adultery with Bathsheba, and yet God chose King David to be the ancestor of Jesus Christ? What happened there? Was that okay? Or other examples are God mows down whole groups of people, tells King David to go kill everybody in one of the ites, the somethingites and the somethingites. Those were bad people, and my grandson has answers for those things. I can't remember what he said about King David, but he did say that, well, those were bad people. God had to do that.
Okay, so just take a breath.
Okay.
And this is the kind of thing that can go on for thousands of years. Oh, wait, it already has gone on for thousands of years.
Right.
That people want to debate about these absolute truths, and people want to sow who's right and who's wrong. Please walk away from those. Let those people who want to be right be right.
Okay.
And look at some teachings that say things like, I can either be right or happy. And then choose for yourself. Do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And you can absolutely find people with a far higher intellectual capacity than I have who will give you the arguments you could use to dismantle your grandson's position. And then what have you got?
Yeah, exactly.
Even if a miracle happened and you got him to agree with you, what have you got? And most often, even though you'll have the argument that intellectually shreds every argument he presents, he still won't let go of his belief because he's more focused on being right. And if you stay focused on being right, you're just going to butt heads like bighorn sheep on the side of a mountain.
Totally. Yep.
And so breathe and soften and bless his heart. And if you want to connect with him in the way that Pierre Pradervan would offer us, with the gentle art of blessing, and see him in his highest and best, and see him growing in his patience and his understanding and his compassion and his ability to release this reliance on judgment of good over evil, etc., and just allow him to, explore his path, and teach him by example the idea that it's okay for other people to believe different things than I believe or observe. And I don't need to be the one who's changing them. And I can still have loving thoughts and deep respect for them and compassion for them. And the only way we teach that to people is through example.
Right, exactly. Because I can't say those things to him. I wouldn't say those things to him. I usually end up saying, Charlie, I'm so excited for you that you found this passion and it is healing you and it's helping you with your anxiety, and it's fantastic. And he always ends up smiling and thinking, oh, good, But then he comes back to saying, but you're going to go to hell. And I say, well, there are a lot of reasons why I might go to hell, and I don't think you need to worry about it. How about we just leave it to God to make up that decision? He says, but all you have to say, we go around and around. It's great because he's such a great kid. But anyway, yeah, he wants me to say those words. Maybe I should, but...
Well, what would it hurt, right? What's it going to help? I don't know. What's it going to hurt? I don't know. Unless you're stuck in, well, so this has come to my mind a few times, so I'll share it with you.
Okay.
As I've been very open about on the show, I was raised Catholic, kindergarten, grade school, high school, and college. I'm a slow learner. And so, I recognized in those last years of college that the priests were so stuck in their dogma, and they were so miserable for the most part, and duplicitous so often, etc., that I started exploring other spiritual paths. And I quit going to church, but I've never quit studying spirituality and doing meditation and prayer and stuff like that. So then I get married and I have 2 kids. And one of them is an infant in a carrier, and the other one is just barely walking. They're only 15 months apart. And my mother was with me helping with something, and we're going to leave the apartment I lived in. And she looks at me with this incredibly sad look on her face, and she says, I'm just so scared because he's not baptized. And I said, Mom, my thoughts on that stuff. And she said, but, I don't want to, I said, I don't want to spend all the money on, this party and this, we're very strapped for money right now. I'm finishing grad school and all that stuff. And she said, but what if something happens to him and he hasn't been baptized? And I said, Mom, everything I've been taught by you is that you can baptize him. Would you feel better if you baptized him right now? And she said, oh, could I? And I said, sure.
Oh.
Go ahead, have at it. And right there, before we walked out of the apartment, she baptized him in the name of the Father and the Son, blah, 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 all that stuff. And she knew just what to say, because she's, at that point in time, she was in her 60s, and she was, she'd been memorizing everything that you need to say to baptize somebody in the proper way. And she felt this huge weight lifted.
Oh, my God, that's such a great story.
And I just smiled and said, okay. So, my understanding about these things is that you can either be right or happy. And at this stage in my life anyway, I'm choosing more often to just be happy. And I don't want to argue with people about whether or not my way to get happy is right or wrong. Let them choose for themselves, and I'll choose for myself.
Well, I feel exactly the same way, but there's always a challenge when somebody like my grandson comes around. If I said that to him, he'd say, "That's not good enough." He I love your story. That's a fantastic story. So what'd you do? You spit? I mean, how did she do it?
Oh, I don't know. At that point in time, she might have been walking around with a little vial of holy water in her purse.
Yeah.
Right? I don't remember all the details of the process because
Yeah.
I wasn't invested in it.
Right.
Because to me, his essence is just like everybody else's, and it can't be chipped, dented, rusted, faded, or broken in any way, as I've said so often on this show and in our support
It's a
groups.
great list.
And so, if he gets baptized, he's going to be okay, and if he doesn't get baptized, he's going to be okay, according to what I've been observing in my life.
Right.
Well, I thank you for your comments and questions. I've been trying to stay on top of the show and comments and questions. So we've reached the end of our first hour. So I do not believe we're going to have a live second hour today because Michael and Jeanie are busy with family. But if they do, you'll get the notification if you have if you've chimed in on Needle and or on the app. So I will remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff that we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And I'll invite you to join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Time. Blessings.